I reached for my phone to silence the morning alarm, but another notification appeared before I touched the screen. It was a reminder I had written myself 2 weeks earlier. The words were short, simple, and impossible to ignore. Don't break your promise today. I stared at the sentence for several long moments because I could not remember making any promise. The reminder had my name attached to it, and the date showed that I had created it myself. I tried to think of birthdays, meetings, family plans, and work deadlines, but nothing matched those 5 words. It felt unsettling to realize that my own phone remembered something I no longer could. My name is Nora Hale, and for most of my life, I trusted my memory more than any planner, calendar, or notebook. Friends filled their phones with reminders that buzzed every hour, while I carried nothing except confidence. I believed important things naturally stayed in my mind. If I cared enough, I would remember. At least, that was the story I kept telling myself. For years, that belief seemed completely true. I remembered my coworkers' favorite coffee orders after hearing them only once. I could visit a new neighborhood and find my way back without using a map. I rarely forgot birthdays, and I often reminded other people about appointments they had almost missed. Those small victories quietly convinced me that my memory was different. Without realizing it, I stopped protecting something that every human mind eventually needs. Many English speakers use the expression, to take something for granted. It means believing that something valuable will always be there without giving it enough care or attention. Looking back now, I understand that I had taken my memory for granted. I assumed it would never disappoint me because it never had before. I worked as a graphic designer in a publishing company where creativity and organization were equally important. Creativity helped me imagine beautiful ideas, but organization turned those ideas into finished books. Unfortunately, I enjoyed the first part much more than the second. My desk usually held scattered sketches, unfinished notes, and coffee cups waiting to be cleaned. Whenever someone suggested using a planner, I smiled politely and said that my brain worked better without one. That Tuesday morning began like hundreds of mornings before it. Soft sunlight reached across my desk as I opened my computer, and the office slowly filled with familiar sounds. Phones started ringing, printers came to life. Someone laughed near the coffee machine. Rowan Pierce was already reviewing client files with the quiet focus that seemed to follow him everywhere. He looked up when I arrived. "You seem relaxed today," he said. "I finally slept well," I replied. "I'm glad." His answer was simple, yet his smile carried genuine relief. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Around 10 o'clock, my manager called me into his office. The publishing company had been working on a children's book for almost 2 months, and I was responsible for the final illustrations. The author planned to review everything the following afternoon before sending the book to print. "This project means a lot to the company," my manager said. "Can you have the final files ready by tomorrow?" "Absolutely," I answered without hesitation, because I truly believed I could finish everything on time. Back at my desk, I became completely absorbed in the illustrations. I adjusted colors, softened shadows, and corrected tiny details that most readers would probably never notice. Hours seemed to disappear while I worked. English speakers often describe this experience by saying they lose track of time. The expression means becoming so focused that you stop noticing how quickly the hours pass. Every designer, writer, or artist experiences that feeling from time to time. Sometime after lunch, Rowan stopped beside my desk. "Don't forget tomorrow afternoon," he said. "I won't." He smiled. "You've said that before." I laughed, because I thought he was teasing me. "I'm serious this time." "I know." Then he returned to his work. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly until my phone vibrated. It was a message from Lyra Bennett. "Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Don't disappear this time." I smiled without thinking. Lyra had always enjoyed exaggerating small things to make me laugh. I replied almost immediately. "I wouldn't miss it." She answered with a smiling face and a heart. I locked my phone and continued working, never wondering why she had added the words, "this time." The following morning, I woke up feeling unusually refreshed. The reminder appeared again before I silenced the alarm. "Don't break your promise today." The same words, the same confusion. I frowned for a moment before deciding I would remember eventually. Sometimes people believe forgetting one small thing is harmless because they expect the memory to return later. That certainly happens on ordinary days. However, when the same thought refuses to return no matter how patiently you wait, uncertainty slowly begins replacing confidence. The office felt busier than usual when I arrived. Rowan looked toward me with an expression I could not understand. "You made it." His words sounded oddly careful. "Of course," I answered. "You look better today." "I was only tired yesterday." A faint line appeared across his forehead. "Yesterday?" "Yes." He hesitated. "Nora, yesterday was Monday." I smiled politely because I assumed he had simply misspoken. "No," I replied. "Yesterday was Tuesday." He looked at me for several long seconds. Then he slowly turned his computer screen toward me. The date in the corner read, Wednesday. Every sound inside the office suddenly seemed farther away. I grabbed my phone and opened the calendar. Wednesday, not Tuesday. My breathing became uneven. I clearly remembered arriving at work yesterday morning. I remembered speaking to Rowan. I remembered answering Lyra's message. After that, nothing. The afternoon had completely disappeared. Not a week, not several days. Just one ordinary afternoon that should have been impossible to lose. Before I could collect my thoughts, my manager appeared beside my desk holding a folder. "Nora," he said quietly, "the author will be here in 20 minutes. I smiled automatically. "I still have time to finish." His expression changed. "I thought you finished it yesterday." The folder in my hands suddenly felt much heavier. I opened the project. Half the illustrations were missing. The remaining pages were unfinished. For the first time in my life, I was not afraid that I had forgotten a deadline. I was afraid that I had forgotten part of myself. Before I share the rest of story, I need to know, where are you listening from? I would love to hear from you. For several seconds, I could not move. My eyes remained fixed on the unfinished illustrations, but they no longer looked familiar. I recognized every character and every background because I had created them myself. However, the pages felt incomplete in a way that made no sense. I remembered spending hours perfecting each illustration, yet the project in front of me looked as though I had stopped working halfway through. My manager watched me carefully. "Nora," he said gently, "is something wrong?" I looked up at him, trying to find an explanation that sounded reasonable. "I thought I finished everything yesterday." He exchanged a quick glance with Rowan before speaking again. "Yesterday afternoon, you told me the project was almost ready. You asked for one more morning to check the colors." His words only deepened my confusion. I don't remember saying that. The room became unusually quiet. My manager did not question my answer. Instead, He placed the folder back on my desk and spoke in a calm voice. "We'll tell the author there has been a delay. Right now, I think you need a few minutes." After he left, Rowan closed the office door behind him. "You've been forgetting little things for weeks," he said carefully. "Yesterday was different." I looked at him. What happened yesterday? He remained silent for a moment before answering. "You asked me where the meeting room was." I frowned. "So? You've worked here for almost 4 years." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "Then you asked again, 20 minutes later." I searched my memory desperately. Nothing appeared. "You also thanked me for helping with a project we finished last month." I lowered my eyes. "And before you went home, you asked if today was Monday." Every sentence felt like another piece of a puzzle I could not solve. Sometimes people believe memory disappears all at once, but that is rarely how life works. More often, the changes arrive quietly through small moments that seem unimportant on their own. Looking back later, those ordinary moments become the first signs that something deeper has been happening all along. "I should remember," I whispered. "I know. I've never been like this. I know." His calm voice somehow made everything feel more real. Together we searched every shared folder on the company server. Rowan checked older versions while I opened automatic backups stored in the cloud. Nearly 20 anxious minutes passed before he finally leaned back in his chair. "I found something." Hope returned immediately. He opened the latest backup. Most of the illustrations were there. The missing pages had not been deleted. They had never been saved. I stared at the screen without understanding. I remember finishing those drawings. Rowan pointed toward the dates beside each file. "The computer doesn't—" His answer carried no blame, only facts. The author arrived a few minutes later. Her name was Evelyn Marsh, and she greeted everyone with a warm smile that slowly disappeared when she realized the presentation would not happen. "I've been looking forward to seeing the artwork," she admitted. "So have I," I answered quietly. She studied my face for a moment, before asking a question I did not expect. "Are you feeling well?" I wanted to say yes. Instead, I answered honestly, "I'm not sure." Her expression softened immediately. "Books can wait a few more days," she said. "People shouldn't have to." Those simple words stayed with me long after she left the office. Around lunchtime, my manager asked me to go home and rest. "We'll move the presentation to Friday," he explained. "The project matters, but right now I'm more concerned about you." I thanked him and quietly packed my bag. As I walked through the office, I noticed something that filled me with guilt. Several unfinished tasks on Rowan's desk carried my name: client emails, design proofs, meeting notes. Without realizing it, I had been leaving pieces of my work for someone else to complete. English speakers often say someone is carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. The expression describes a person who quietly accepts too many responsibilities. Looking at Rowan's desk, I realized that some of that weight belonged to me. Outside, the afternoon sky had turned gray. The city looked exactly the same as it had every other day, yet I felt completely disconnected from it. People crossed busy streets while talking on their phones. Children laughed outside a nearby bakery. A cyclist hurried through the traffic lights without stopping. Everyone seemed certain about where they were going. I was no longer certain about where I had been. Halfway home, my phone began ringing. Lyra's name appeared on the screen. I answered immediately. "Hi." There was excitement in her voice. "I can't wait to see you tonight." My stomach tightened. "Tonight?" A short silence followed. "Please don't tell me you forgot." My heart sank. We made plans? Nora. I'm trying to remember. Her cheerful voice disappeared. My mother's exhibition opens tonight. I closed my eyes. The exhibition. I remembered helping Lyra choose invitation cards. I remembered encouraging her mother when she doubted herself. I remembered promising that I would be there, but I could not remember making the promise itself. I already bought your ticket, Lyra said quietly. I'm sorry. You've been saying that a lot lately. The sentence hurt because it was true. I don't know what's happening to me. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then her voice became softer. Nora, can I ask you something? Of course. When was the last time you told someone how worried you are? The question caught me completely unprepared. I had spent days pretending everything would return to normal if I ignored it long enough. Instead of answering, I thanked her for calling and quietly ended the conversation. When I finally reached my apartment, I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and placed my bag on the floor. The silence felt heavier than usual. I walked into the living room and looked around at the life I had built. Books rested on chairs instead of shelves. Letters waited unopened on the table. Coffee cups stood beside the window exactly where I had forgotten them. For years I had called this freedom. Now it looked like exhaustion. I slowly sat on the floor with my back against the sofa. For the first time in years, I stopped trying to remember. I simply cried. There was no dramatic reason, no loud panic, only quiet tears for the person I had been only a short time ago. When the crying finally stopped, I noticed something resting beneath the coffee table. It was a small white envelope. My name was written across the front, in handwriting I recognized immediately. It belonged to my father. Under my name, he had written one final sentence. If you forgot the promise, open this tomorrow. I left the envelope untouched until the following morning. My father's handwriting had always brought me comfort, but that night, I was afraid of what his words might reveal. I sat beside the living room window for a long time, watching the lights from nearby apartments appear one by one. People laughed over dinner. Children ran through the hallway outside. And somewhere, a piano played a quiet melody. Life continued all around me, while I struggled to understand why mine suddenly felt unfamiliar. When the sun finally rose, I made myself a cup of coffee and placed the envelope on the kitchen table. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside was a folded letter and a small brass key attached to a paper tag. The tag carried only 2 words, "Safety Box." I unfolded the letter carefully. Dear Nora, if you are reading this, there is a chance you have forgotten the promise you once made to yourself. I hope I am wrong. If I am not, please remember this before anything else. You never promised me that you would become perfect. You promised that you would never carry your struggles alone. That was the only promise that truly mattered. I stopped reading. The reminder on my phone suddenly made sense. Don't break your promise today. It had never been about work. It had never been about a meeting. It had never been about a deadline. It was a promise I had made during my father's illness, after admitting how overwhelmed I often felt, but how rarely I asked anyone for help. I continued reading, "The key belongs to the safety deposit box we opened together. I placed something inside because I knew there might come a day when you trusted your memory more than your own well-being. If that day arrives, please open the box and remember who you are." Tears blurred the final lines of the letter. This time, I did not wipe them away. Sometimes we believe strength means hiding every fear until it disappears. In reality, emotions often become heavier when we carry them alone. Speaking honestly does not make us weaker. It allows other people to walk beside us instead of watching us struggle from a distance. That afternoon, I visited the small bank where my father and I had opened the safety deposit box years earlier. The employee unlocked a quiet room before leaving me alone. The metal box slid open with a soft click. Inside were only 3 things: a family photograph, a small notebook, a flash drive. I picked up the photograph first. It showed my father and me sitting on a park bench several years earlier. We were both laughing at something outside the camera frame. On the back, he had written a single sentence: "The happiest memories are the ones we share, not the ones we carry alone." I smiled through my tears before opening the notebook. Every page contained letters that I had written to myself during my father's final months. I barely remembered writing them, yet every sentence sounded familiar. One page immediately caught my attention. "If life ever becomes too heavy, promise yourself 3 things. Tell the truth, accept help, write things down before fear convinces you that you have to remember everything alone." I slowly closed the notebook. The promise had never been forgotten. I had simply buried it beneath months of stress, pride, and exhaustion. Finally, I connected the flash drive to my laptop. There was only one file. It was a video. I pressed play. The screen filled with my own face. I looked tired, but I was smiling gently. "Hi, Nora," I said in the recording. "If you're watching this, it probably means you forgot why you started writing reminders." I laughed softly in the video before continuing. "You always think you're asking too much from people. You always believe tomorrow will be easier if you just work a little harder. But every time you ignore your limits, you become a little lonelier." I paused for a moment, then looked directly into the camera. "If you forgot the promise, let me remind you." I took a slow breath. The promise was never to remember everything. Another quiet smile appeared on my face. The promise was to never face everything by yourself. The video ended. I remained sitting in complete silence. For the first time since all of this had begun, nothing inside me felt confusing. That afternoon, I called Rowan. "I need to tell you something," I said. "I'm listening. I've been pretending I'm fine because I was afraid people would think I wasn't capable anymore." He answered without hesitation. "Nora, we stopped worrying about your work days ago. We've been worrying about you." An hour later, I met Lyra at the cafe where we had planned to meet earlier that week. This time, I arrived early. Not because I suddenly trusted my memory again, but because I had written the meeting in my planner before leaving home. When I sat down, I placed my notebook on the table beside my tea. Lyra looked at it and smiled. "You finally bought one." I finally accepted that I needed one. She reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you." That simple sentence carried more comfort than I expected. Over the following weeks, I spoke honestly with my manager, visited a healthcare professional, and began building new habits instead of depending only on old confidence. The children's book was eventually completed, and the author loved the final illustrations. Rowan no longer had to quietly finish my work, and Lyra never had to wonder whether I would remember the moments that mattered most. Life did not become perfect. I still forgot small things. I still checked my planner every morning. The difference was that I no longer saw those habits as proof that I was failing. They became proof that I was taking care of myself. Even today, my phone shows the same reminder every morning. "Don't break your promise today." I smile every time I read it because I finally understand what those words mean. The promise was never about remembering every appointment, every deadline, or every detail. It was about remembering that no memory is stronger than the courage to ask for help, and that is one promise I will never choose to forget again. If you liked this story, please like, comment, and share. More simple and emotional stories are coming soon.